And without further ado, I would like to introduce you to Baratunde Thurston, our keynote speaker. Saw him at South by Southwest. Let's give him an awesome, huge WebVisions hand.
Give it up for Johnny right here, plugging things in. I love plugging things in. While he's doing that, I just want to comment on what the conference head just did here. I shook his hand, and I probably shouldn't have done that for a man who just promoted strip clubs to everybody. Now, one more time for Brad, please. Thank you, Brad. Wonderful to be here. All right, cool. Beautiful. So how's everybody feeling? That sounds terrible. One other comment. I was checking out the Filter Lounge. They have these temporary tattoos that I assume have some kind of LSD component. And they have these seizure-inducing blue LED lights. Don't use them together. It's a terrible idea. They got this genetically modified mermaid/unicorn, or as I like to call it, a mercorn. Which is very strange. Everything, wow, this is great. Yes. Oh, yeah, push the button, yes. Get angry at it. Show it who's boss. That's right. Yeah, who's Mac? Actually, it's my Mac, so that doesn't work. What's your name, dude? Steve. Steve, give it up for Steve. Making it happen. Sort of. When in doubt, unplug it. What's your name, dude? You, right here. Kyle, how you doing? I'm good. Everybody say, what's up, Kyle? I actually, Portland was the last city that my mother lived in, so it's actually really good to be back here. I've done the Voodoo Donuts thing. I've gone up to the coast at Astoria. I've drank a lot of beer in this town. Make noise if you're not from the Portland area. Oh, good. So let's do a whose part of the country is better than the other part of the country. East Coast people, where you at? The worst. I guess I should have clarified with a make some noise kind of thing. Where are my Southern people? Make some noise. That was just one loud, that's like the South right there. Just one guy, just like, yeah! It's his rebel yell, y'all. I love it. Where's my Midwestern people? That was so politely Midwestern. That was right in the spirit of what you're supposed to be doing. And my West Coast people. Hippies, just hippies everywhere. One last question, just a local observation. Every parking lot that I've seen in this town has been taken over by food trucks. And I just, where do the cars go? Or are they all, is every driver also a food truck operator? Is that just required in this town? I want to talk to you about the future of things. Let me give a brief but important overview of where I am coming from here. That is a slide of whiteness. For no particular reason. I co-founded a political blog called Jack and Jill Politics. It's a black-oriented U.S. politics blog. The watermelon is our logo, as you can see. And for obvious reasons, the watermelon has long symbolized intelligent and balanced political discourse. And so we wanted to embrace that message, most obviously. I have actually lived in the future briefly. I hosted a TV show on Discovery Science Channel a few years back called Popular Science's Future Of. And it was really cool because I got to hang out with scientists and play with their research and try to think about what it might mean for the rest of us. We did a whole episode, the future of habitat, the future of sex, the future of pleasure, which was separate from the future of sex, which is really disturbing. And I learned one important fact about the future. There will be at least one black person in it, ergo, but we'll be required to wear wetsuits. So that's mild trade-off. It's cool. I worked for 4.5 years at America's Finest News Source, also known as The Onion, title of Director of Digital, which I made up myself because it sounded really badass. And I just like DOD things. It's very intimidating to people who don't know what I do. And I do a lot of community service activities. So I believe in I've been given a lot of gifts and a lot of opportunities, and I want to use those talents for good. There is a very, very horrible body of literature destroying and really undermining what it means to be American. It's called Twilight. And when the films come out, I sacrifice myself for the greater good. I go watch them. And from the back of the theater, because I'm a considerate person, I live hate tweet the movie. And what that means is I tweet about the movie in real time with hatred in my heart. And it comes easily. It comes very easily for something like this pro-stalker nonsense that is Twilight. I ask questions that other people don't ask. I think questions that should be asked. Right. It's a good question. It's a good question. Bella's father's a cop. He's the worst cop in the world. His daughter gets kidnapped all the time. All the time. Where's Child Protective Services? No one? No one? Okay. Sometimes when you're in this role of teaching, you want to reach someone. You want to make an impact. If you've ever taught in any capacity before, you understand that you can't reach everybody, but if you can just reach the one, your job here is done. And so when I have convinced a handful of people not to spend money on this movie, I thought, I've done good by my conscience and my country. So you're welcome for that. And I wrote this book. It's called How to Be Black. We have a very simple marketing message behind it. And if you don't buy it, you're racist. It's not like a claim. It's a scientific fact. I'm just reporting on it. And it works. The book is a New York Times bestseller. Now, I'll actually be signing right after this in the hallway and have like a few T-shirts you guys can riot over later. And I want to talk about this world a little bit. And what I want to go into is sort of not just the vague future, but the future of how we tell stories, given the digital infusion and overwhelming amount of options we have coming at us. And I was able to experiment with a lot of that at this organization. My chief contribution was to play the role of all the black people you see in the photos in The Onion. It was great. I would play the role of Cooter Obama, who was Obama's notorious hillbilly half-cousin. And he may make an appearance yet again during this cycle. The Onion is obviously known for covering media industries pretty accurately. This story about the Huffington Post employee sucked into an aggregation turbine. Just so much content to take credit for. It's hard, it's difficult, and it's dangerous work. It's very dangerous work. And you know, the way that this organization, in my time there, was able to adapt our own storytelling techniques given the new platforms has been a really kind of fun lesson for me, moving more quickly than the traditional process that's been set up for the past 23 or so years. So when this real news happened about Steve Jobs passing away, that is not funny. I don't know why who just laughed? Who was that? Kyle, jeez. We'll talk after. No T-shirt for you, Kyle. Yeah. So when this happens, obviously a major story. What's going to be the Onion take on this? And behind the scenes, this is a process. It's a little inside look at the virtual writers' room of people pitching takes on the passing of Steve Jobs. So Chinese iPhone factories worker vaguely aware of cold, distant chill. Apple Store employee acting like his fucking dad died. Apple shareholders, fuck, and fuck. The number of fucks was very important in that headline. We ended up going with this version, last American who knew what the fuck he was doing dies. Which I think speaks not only to the importance and symbolism of Steve Jobs, but to our impending doom as a great nation. That was pretty great. We also reacted very quickly to this situation, which made me quite proud. This is about a year ago. And this guy's just a seriously terrible person. And so I just want to point out that Donald Trump has yet to produce the documents proving he's not a festering pile of shit. So the jury is still out on that. I'm voting with not human. Doing things in more real time, the way we had been traditionally set up was a very deliberative process. Most things get rejected, and that's still the case with the organization. But on occasion, you can kind of jump in and play along because we're in this more real-time, stream-oriented world where stories can play out a bit differently. These are some behind-the-scenes shots. Again, I'm not going to read all this because it's designed so you can't read it because I am not a nice person. But these are our live tweeting sort of prep docs. This is for the State of the Union. This is for the Oscars. This is for the Super Bowl. And one of the ways this emerged was trying to ride the hashtags to sort of get in front of people who weren't necessarily a part of your community, but were around this virtual water cooler. We have fewer of those because we don't all watch the same channels anymore, but on the VMA nights or the Oscar nights, a big chunk of the world kind of comes together around their screens and sees roughly the same thing. So we thought this would be a great opportunity to do that. Queen Latifah was presenting an award at the Oscars a few years ago. I was watching and live tweeting through my own account, and I remember there was this Onion story, King Latifah returns for Queen. And so I was like, oh, let me find that, and then I put that out. And then so as other celebrities who we had covered emerged, I would kind of search the website, post it, and people were really excited, like, oh, wow, the Onion is live tweeting the Oscars, which is not quite true. We were live archive searching and republishing the Oscars, but it's just sexier and simpler to say live tweeting. So that was a great lesson. One of the other insights, we would kind of use the performance of items on Twitter, this is the analytics screen, to help determine what got published later on the Facebook outlet or even to some degree on the website. This story kind of combines a lot of the new ways that we thought about telling stories. We rolled out stories as they were developing, again, sort of being transparent through the timeline. And so the first tweet we had put out was this: witnesses report screams and gunfire heard inside the Capitol building. Then we had an update, which is that the building was being evacuated. Children were being held hostage by a group of armed congressmen. We had the hashtag Congress hostage, and we got this photo, which was a very troubling image. We had a nice zoom lens for our photojournalist, and that's Speaker of the House John Boehner holding a gun to a little girl's head. It's very hard to look at these pictures. And so then we start rounding out the story. A gun shop reports Eric Cantor loaded up on ammo a few days earlier, and we're pushing this out over minutes and hours throughout the day. We even managed to get some cell phone footage from inside the hostage situation. And again, I want to warn you, these are disturbing images. If you have small children, you may want to avert your eyes.
Nobody move, you're all gonna die! Hey, Boehner, this kid's got a phone.
As I said, disturbing images. And then so we continue to roll out the story. One of my favorites was President Obama sort of stepping into the scene saying, I know this Congress well, trust me, they will kill those kids. Which, if you think about it, makes sense. He does know this Congress quite well and what they're capable of or not. And then the sort of summary of the whole play was this final piece: hostage negotiation talk stall in Congress, which is a great meta comment on what's actually happening or not happening, as it were, in the Capitol. So interesting feedback from this. A lot of people in the mainstream media, what Sarah Palin might call the lamestream media, were none too pleased with our satirical techniques, and they're asking, is it too soon? Were we irresponsible? And a number of folks were like, oh, you should have provided some context to those tweets, especially that first one. DC's been through a lot. We've had terrorist attacks and other events have happened, and you were describing an event in our city. It's too soon to talk about events. And I was very annoyed by this and impatient with it because the context was provided by coming from the Onion, and that's it. You're an idiot. I have no patience. I'm very racist against idiots. It's just a personal thing. And so our editor drafted up this amazing response. I'd love to share it with you in full. I was thinking that we could say something about how irresponsible it is for the news media to report on something that the news media is reporting on irresponsibly, and that Twitter is ultimately to blame and should start censoring tweets. This just goes to show how dangerous free speech is when in the hands of reporters. That was Joe Randazzo, a very brilliant mind in American journalism. So that's one phase of the other of storytelling. The other thing that we've learned and I've had a chance to play around with is having others sort of participate in the story with you. This story of ours, again, if you can't see it, Planned Parenthood opens $8 billion abortionplex. This was a very popular piece of journalism for us. 2 lives it had when it was originally published a year ago around congressional controversy on funding Planned Parenthood, and then again when the Susan G. Komen Foundation decided it wasn't sure what it wanted to be when it grew up. And so that was the story, okay? And we put it out, and it was a fine piece of creative work. But then someone extended it. One of our readers created a venue for the abortionplex inside of Yelp and took cues from the story to kind of round out the description, the place. It was Topeka, Kansas. And but it wasn't just a lone person who was inspired. Over 280 other people have added reviews to this venue entry in Yelp, and they are quite detailed. This one has a whole set of pros and cons. There's a discussion of the rock climbing wall and how it's one of the best in the Midwest. There's people very excited about the salsa bar. Here's someone who's frustrated with the 18% gratuity. This person got 10 cents off their gasoline, definitely coming back. And this person was just frustrated that there were too many stairs. A very short but to the point review, which made some sense. We didn't ask people to do anything like this. We didn't stop them. I don't know if we could have, but it extended that world that we were building in a much deeper and more interesting way. We also had something similar happen when we broke the news about the return of Osama bin Laden from his sea burial grounds as a 500-foot large version of himself. And so we were rolling this story out. We had some really, again, President Obama always on it. We lost 23 photographers trying to get this shot in Lower Manhattan, really a tragedy. And the headline, Giant Bin Laden Destroys New York and Washington. And then we start, again, rolling out that story, 500-foot Bin Laden is the sort of meme and the tweet. But we also asked people, we had a TV show on IFC, and our anchor's character, Brooke Alvarez, true to the cable news persona, said, oh, this terrible tragedy is befalling the East Coast. If you've seen 500-foot Bin Laden, if he has hurt, killed, or maimed any of your friends or family, please send us pictures. And so we asked for that. We got, again, more great art from our staff. But then someone out there spotted Bin Laden in the Boston Harbor. And that's the sort of reporting that we can learn from a vaunted news organization such as CNN. And so, taking that, it's okay, what's the further evolution? How do you exist, not just in print, not just on your website, maybe on a stage like this and on these social media outlets, and take advantage of what each of them has to offer, not just cut and paste the story from one medium to the next. And I want to tell a different story here. This is about an insane exercise I did with a friend to turn a 4-square mayoral battle into a proper political campaign. And I was the mayor of a place in Soho called Delicatessen. I loved it. I was a great peacetime mayor. We exhibited strong economic growth, opportunities for the middle class, and delicious burgers. All was quiet. And then a friend of mine challenged my mayorship. And so instead of us just like checking in and being sort of boring and mechanical about it, we added the voice and the sentiment and the tone of an actual political campaign. We hired staffs. We were there every day. Our social lives moved to this restaurant morning, noon, and night. She ended up putting a custom drink of hers on the menu and using the tip feature in Foursquare to encourage people to buy the Magnolfi for Mayor drink. Her name was Jen. It still is Jen Magnolfi. I followed up with a whiskey-flavored drink called the Whiskey Thurston. And we had T-shirts made. I mean, it was a very involved thing. I was most proud of this. I held a rally for my incumbent position, kind of defend against this challenger.
But my name is Baratunde Thurston, and I'm running for re-election as mayor of Delicatessen! Now, some people say that mayorship is just about checking in on Foursquare, but we know that's not true, right?
No! Preach on, preach on!
Mayorship's about cheeseburgers, spring rolls. Can I get an amen? Amen! But I'd like to quote from the good book, that'd be the Delicatessen menu. From the book of sandwiches. We've got the Delicatessen Reuben on rye, and I quote, hand sliced corned beef, sauerkraut Swiss, and Russian dressing. Testify. From the book of dessert. This is a classic, people. It's called Milk and Cookies. Milk and cookies. Say it with me. Milk and cookies. Milk and cookies. Milk and cookies. When I say delica, you say Tessin. Delica. Tessin. Delica. Tessin. When I say cheeseburger, you say spring roll. Cheeseburger. Spring roll. Cheeseburger. Spring roll. When I say whiskey, you say Friday. Whiskey. Friday. Whiskey. Friday. Let's go have some whiskey, people. People. That's what I'm talking about. Let's go.
So we live in very divisive political times, and you can't, put yourself out there like that without some backlash and some hating from the other side. So this happened. A counter-protest emerged in the moment, and this was not planned. I did not coordinate this. I did not know that was going to happen. So again, had actually created a platform. People made those signs, didn't pay anybody to do this. It was just fun, and it was a way of extending some digital platform into a storytelling device, bringing it offline, creating community around it, having a bit of fun. I walked into the bar after that to celebrate Whiskey Friday. By the way, if you're not familiar, Whiskey Friday is a global movement for change that unites rather than divides us. And in these volatile economic times, we need something that brings people together. Whiskey is that thing. And so the way it works, people often wonder, what is this Whiskey Friday? How does it happen? What do I need to do? On Fridays, you drink whiskey. And that's it. That's it. Preferably at work, starting as early as possible. So I went into the restaurant after, and this guy at the bar was upset with me. He was like, "Who the hell are you? Why are people rallying around you and cure AIDS? What are you doing this for?" I was like, "I'm just, it's like an art project. Let's just, enjoy life a little bit. Let's calm down." And he's like, "Well, what is this restaurant paying you? What are they paying you? What's Foursquare paying you for this?" And I was like, "Nothing. This is just, I'm just experimenting." He's like, "Well, Foursquare owes you reparations." I was like, "I don't think you mean that word that you just said, sir." And either way, no, they don't. This is just for me. So that was fun, and that happened. I ended up losing that battle, and I was, the only way to lose a mayorship in the Foursquare system is not to check in. The way to do that is not to show up. So it's really the ultimate of the political rule, like showing up is half the battle. In this case, it's all of it. And I travel a lot, so I was out of town. But in this day, I was actually in town. And a friend of mine, Gustavo Rivera, was running for New York State Senate. And he asked for my help. And so I went up to canvass for him in the Bronx, instead of going straight to Delicatessen for brunch to hold on to my seat of power. And as I was going off into the projects to knock on doors, I got the alert that I had been ousted as mayor. It was a very sad moment for the campaign. It was a sad moment for the people of Delicatessen. And I just want to share again, this is a video that happened right after that moment. Checking in for breakfast at Delicatessen was clearly the political decision of my life. And I just want to know it's been an honor running against you. I think you kept it clean. I think you kept it classy. I think you kept it respectable. It's a campaign I can be proud of, you can be proud of, and most importantly, the people of Delicatessen can be proud of. So I will probably stop by Delicatessen this evening in honor of your victory and have one of your campaign drinks that I will pay for with my campaign funds. And hopefully we can still do the symbolic drink runoff during the week just as a sprint to the finish. But absolutely congratulations. As we said, you think it happened. And in this game of politics, it's 100% about showing up. Way to show up. Thank you. Bye-bye. So gracious.
But it's all over. It's all over. It's all over. It's all over.
So that was fun. This is, I want to get to the black part. It's always a black part. So one of the, that was, sort of my, part of my own education and background and experimenting and playing with ways to tell stories. And then I had a book, that has come out, and we use a lot of these techniques in the creation and in the distribution of that. And so I want to talk a little bit about the background for this book, How to Be Black. And it sort of started on Twitter a couple of years ago. I went to buy some wine at a local wine shop, and I didn't know how to do it. There's a certain way you're expected to buy wine, and you're just supposed to know. Like, you pour it, and then you swirl it around, then you take a deep, violent sniff, and then things happen inside your brain and your heart, and you feel a sense of sadness or ennui or nutmeg or roasts or dirt. And I don't know any of that bullshit because it's made up. And I think people are just acting at sophistication. And I didn't want to learn and ask the clerk for help because that would involve changing myself. And I like who I am exactly the way I am. And so I looked for a sign from the wine labels to say, like, is there some way to know which to buy and which not to buy? And I saw this label of wine called Negro Amaro. And I thought, yes, this is the sign I was looking for. This is a sign for Negroes. This is the wine that I need for the discerning yet ignorant and wasteful black person. And so I bought and enjoyed this wine, and then I thought about what I did later, and as with most of my thoughts, I posted them to the internet, and I challenged my friend Elon James White with this message. This weekend, I picked up my red wine because it was called Negro Amaro. That's how black I am, Elon James. How black are you? And he responded very quickly for 7:30 in the morning, I might add. I see the subtle racial implications of Thundercats. Panthro is black, shirtless, and Lion-O's driver. How black are you, Baratunde? And so we started bouncing back and forth in this hashtag dozen-style game, and because it's open, other people joined in. We're out-blacking each other in slightly silly, occasionally horrifying ways. And I ended up speaking about this at a conference later, and there was a representative from HarperCollins named Debbie Steer in the audience. And so she brought me in for a meeting. They said, oh, you have such a clear voice, you should write a book. Maybe How Black Are You as a book? And I was like, maybe no. That was a terrible idea. Because I trust Elon, who's a friend of mine, who's a fellow comedian, who's also black, to play that game. I don't trust America to play that game, the same country that still denies the citizenship of its clearly citizenized president. So I thought that's a little irresponsible. And they said, well, what about How to Be Black? And I thought, that's absurd. Yes, absolutely yes. It can't be done, so I shall do it. And because it was so far-fetched and so absurd and not undermining, but kind of an offer, like, here's how to, as opposed to you are not, that was a more fun question to explore. So the book itself, is premised on this conversation and premised on inviting people into the discovery. I talked with folks about the book. There are questions built in, like, when did you first realize you were black? How black are you? Have you ever wanted to not be black? Can you swim? And I look at these very critical components of identity in America, and here's a clip of how that played out through my black panel. I interviewed a series of people who are experts at blackness. They've been black their whole lives, and so have a deep well of experience from which to draw. Take a look at this story.
So I came home, and I remember I couldn't really move past the entrance of the house, and I needed to talk about the fact that this little girl said that I was black and that I, in fact, found myself to be beige.
was playing doctor with a bunch of kids, and this one girl, it was her turn to kiss me, and she didn't, and she sort of ran away laughing, and the other kids ran away laughing, and the thing I realized at that point that I was black and they were all white, because this was a small private school in Boston, and that was the first time I remember feeling like black was somehow separate from the norm. You know, I think I knew I was black before then, because as I say in my show, my mom would not have let me not know I was black. There would have been no way that she would have let that information slip. It's cold outside, take a jacket, and you're black.
I was born in Africa, so everybody's black. So we don't really think about it like that. I mean, here you go like, oh my God, so is he black? Is he white? Is he black? Is he black? Black? In Africa, like, you don't ask. The assumption is that you're black. Therefore, what becomes more important is other things. What your name is, where do you come from, what language do you speak, what's your culture, what's your tribe, etc. So I didn't know I was black. When I was 8, I moved to the Middle East. I think the Middle East is the first time I discovered I was black. Because people would come up to you and they'd be like, oh, yes. And
what does that translate to?
That means, oh, this is a black guy.
I grew up in East Chinatown in Toronto, so it was made very clear that I was Guaylo from a very early...
Guaylo being...
white ghost. Sort of, you know, I know every derogatory term for a white person in Chinese.
So what we did with that, those answers are all in the book. I shot it with a very expensive rig, 2-camera shoot of an iPhone 4S and a Flip Minnow HD with a Zoom audio recorder for an independent audio channel, and then we were able to cut together pieces like that and then throw them out into the world. So we built the book's website on Tumblr, and when it came out in February, every day we asked a different question, both from the book and far beyond, because there's more days than we had questions, of things related to identity, and use videos like this to kind of seed that conversation. Building that two-way channel into the very nature of the book. Even the book itself, on every other page where the title generally is, we put the hashtag version of that title to kind of trigger to people, this is something you can join in. There's other content and conversation around it. And so it looks like that at the top of the page. They came up with questions themselves that we put on the website. We were really trying to provoke people in a way. The cover is, it looks like that. And there's 2 versions of the cover. First of all, there's a black on white and a white on black. And that was just because I wanted to make people feel awkward. Because people, what happens is you order the book, you don't know, especially if you order it online, but even if you go to the store, you don't really have a choice. You get the white one, you get the black one, and people are like, what does it mean? How are they different? What does it mean? I need to know. So here's what it means. We have built in some advanced racial profiling technology into the hardware of the book itself. It's some new stuff, kind of a Caltech MIT mashup with just my own science background. And so you get the book you most need. And what I find happen is black people get upset, when they get the white version of the book. But that's because they need more whiteness in their lives. You got to diversify. And then white people get too excited when they get the black version of the book. Like, I did it. No, you just bought a book. You didn't do anything. You're still white. And then mixed race people and brown people especially, they get angry because there's no version for them. And I say buy both and make a blend. So this shot is my favorite. There's a lot of shots of the book in the wild. This book was being held by Neil Brennan, who co-created The Chappelle Show. And I gave him a copy of the book, was very excited to meet him. And he walked into the New York City subway and was immediately surrounded by this crew of black dudes whose facial expressions really capture the full range of responses to the book. You've got the man on the far left who's got a droopy-eyed, like, what you talking about? What's this? How to be? What? The dude holding it with the skull cap, he's really into it. I feel like he's getting good content and good lessons. The guy with the do-rag and the hoodie to his left is like, you gotta be kidding me. And then the dude in the leather jacket and the turtleneck to the right does not give a damn. He knows everything there is to know. No book's gonna teach him otherwise. So that was fun. This is actually the most interesting photo because people just spot you reading this book and it's like, people could walk up to you. What are you doing? Who do you think you are? What is it? Where can I get one? And so this is shot at a Starbucks in Washington, D.C., and she fell asleep reading the book or was using it to shade her eyes or something. And I just imagined she was going for the osmosis method of learning, like a direct knowledge transfer, which I don't recommend. It's not the most effective way to get at the insights which lie within. So I want to talk a little bit about what community can mean. We hear a lot of kind of knee-jerk reactions to how, well, you got to involve the crowd. You got to, people, the internet gives everybody a voice, and we got to empower them to tell, your story with you and co-create. Maybe. But maybe there's another way to do it that still allows people to feel involved without diluting your own voice. And I did something pretty radical in the writing of the book. I shared my screen publicly and openly on the web as I composed certain chapters, and then during the editing process. A friend of mine, Anand Giridharadas, who was a columnist at the New York Times, said, "You should try this." And I was like, "No, I shouldn't. That's a terrible idea." And I wrote this long email explaining how bad an idea it was to open up the process that much. And then I did it because I was like, well, let me try. Let's see what happens. And so here's what happens. I called it live writing. People could tune in. I dropped the links on Twitter and Google Plus on this particular day, I think. And the software comes with, it's like a product demo, and tech support is what it's designed for. So it has a chat room feature for people to talk, and folks were always trying to talk to me. And I'm like, you guys talk to yourselves. I'm trying to write. And then there's a feature which allows them to remotely request command over your computer. And so all these people were trying to take over my computer. I want to write. I know how to be black. Let me help. I was like, no, I'm still the author. You can watch from where you are, drink whiskey, calm down. And so I ended up putting this little billboard you see on the left, can provide some rules of the road. I'm not really listening to you right now. The chat line is kind of closed to talk to me, but you can talk to each other. And so people did. And it was fascinating to see later what they were saying. They were asking, well, how do you know Baratunde? Well, I saw him on this, or I heard about this other project he did. And so they're connected. Where do you live? And people are finding out they sort of know each other, have a project in common. And then they were posting things, more generally, like this is what the internet is all about, or gives me a good connection with the author. How self-obsessed does one have to be to set something like this up? I thought long and hard about this question. The answer is very, by the way, extremely self-obsessed. Just the little I've read here makes me want to buy this book. Cha-ching, that's what it's all about. I have an urge to tweet about this. That's great, because now you're part of the volunteer marketing team. I love free labor. It's the best way to get things done. It's interesting to see his writing flow. This was pretty interesting to me because I had not thought about it in those terms. I was like, I'll do this kind of exhibitionist sort of thing. Maybe it'll be interesting, probably not. But for writers, it was really interesting because you never get to see someone else actually write. You can sort of see from a distance that they're sitting at a cafe or at a desk banging their fingers on a keyboard, but if you actually see the words emerge on a page, you're probably standing too close, and you're making people really uncomfortable. So I gave folks permission to do that, and they could see the way I'm cutting and pasting, bouncing to Wikipedia, bouncing into Google Street View to walk down the streets that I had grown up on as a child and kind of redraw and refigure and re-trigger some of those memories. This observation I found a bit troubling. I'm surprised to see Baratunde use semicolons. And I didn't know if that was specific to me, that I'm not allowed to use semicolons, or is this a weird punctuation racism thing going on? We got a half-black president now. We can probably use semicolons. And then this was my favorite observation. Someone wrote in, my girlfriend is Chinese, and I'm half Jamaican, half regular black. I think our kids might end up Dominican or something. And there's a lot to note, in this note. There's so much to kind of unpack there. Let's talk about this concept of regular black. That was so fascinating to me. And my first thoughts were is there a diet black? Is there black zero? Do you take your black with cream? How does this work? And then the idea that your kids end up Dominican is obviously sort of, a race mixing reference and skin tone. But I want their kids to turn out actually Dominican, loving baseball, eating plantains, and having a Dominican accent. I think it'd be a fun joke on them. So what's the upshot of all this? The lessons that I have learned and continue to learn, stories are full worlds that we create. We ask people to suspend their disbelief, to agree with us essentially on this particular way of looking at the world. And the platforms that it exists on, they're just multiple access points into that world. Maybe it shows up as a Twitter hashtag game. Maybe it shows up as a book. Maybe it's a talk or a stand-up comedy set or graffiti or a dance. But there are different ways of reaching people. Maybe it's something on Instagram or on Foursquare. Also, in the future, we're all going to be Dominican. That's just something you should know. So what I'm working on next, I'm kind of taking the premise of a lot of this about storytelling, about the role of comedy that helps to cut through a bunch of noise and complexity and especially disagreement, and building an organization called Cultivated Wit, which does that more and in full, both as advising, as just for the fun of it, Foursquare type campaigns or whatever the future version of that might be, and just to kind of push the envelope of where stories can happen, and especially where comedy can happen. We hear media a lot, and there's this default understanding that we're talking about video and text on the screen or in print or audio, and it's far greater than that. Media is that interface we have to the world. And so right now it's this and it's room, and you have companies like Improv Everywhere. So that's a media activity, doing things out in the real world. It's also the apps and the digital noise and the marketing messages we're bombarded with. That is also part of our medium to the world, our interface to the world. And so I think that needs more humanity in it. I think it needs more comedy in it, because that's an essentially human thing. And algorithms and software alone aren't going to get us there. So I believe we have about 6 minutes, and I would love to, I cut it you guys a little short, but if you have questions, now would be a great time. Raise your hand, I'll point at you, make everybody laugh at you, and then repeat your question into the mic so that our heroes in the AV department can get a good, clean version. So any questions about anything you saw here today or didn't see here today, shoot your hands into the sky. Yes, sir. Okay, so my brown brother, stage left here, says, I don't see you talking a lot about rednecks. Is there something wrong with them? Are you allergic to them? What's going on, brother? That's an approximate quote. Yeah. Rednecks aren't really essential to my experience of the world right now. I have nothing against them. I think they're very creative people. And I wish them the best. I really do. I'm not anti-redneck unless they're anti-me. So that's that. That was a very interesting first question. Are you a redneck? Were you sent here by rednecks? What? Is there a redneck lobby I need to know about? This is so odd. Yes. Okay. This man just broke down redneckism. And said it's more of an accent and an attitude. I don't think that was a rebuttal to anything I said. Yeah, okay, it sounded like we were disagreeing. Thank you so much then. All right, so now we have a deep understanding of redneckitude. This is a strange twist. If I get one more question about rednecks, I will just walk off the stage and assume I'm in the wrong place. I did not know this was going to happen. There's a man with a green shirt at the point of the triangle. So he said, there's a bunch of white people in the room, and we want more brown people in the room. How do we capture them? That was an approximate paraphrasing of his question. I'm a journalist, guys. And then monetize them. Right now it's getting uncomfortable. Now it's getting really, that was a redneck question apparently. That didn't, I'm just gonna walk. Yeah, so, you guys are amazing. That is a good question. He was really asking, how do we get more diversity and whatnot into the tech and especially the design community? And with my experience as director of digital at this major organization, maybe I have some insights on that. I have a few. I would say, first of all, thank you for asking. I think it's good that it was you that asked and not a brown person, right? Because we've had, it's going to take, it actually reflects back to this. There was a Kamal Bell, who you saw with the afro in the video clip I showed. I had this chapter about what do you want for the future of race and blackness in America. And he said, I want everybody to work for the team one over from theirs. You can't end racism and make sexism worse. You can't end sexism and make homophobia worse. And we each have to fight each other's battles. We have to move it all forward at the same time. So getting that question from a white person is a good start, because black people talking about diversity only goes so far. Brown people, women talking about sexism only goes so far. So thank you, first and foremost. I think there's a level, there's a whole bunch of structural things that exist over time to get people trained, et cetera. But I think there needs to be some solid intent and deep work to actually go out farther out of the comfort zone. I used to work for a company that I would never describe as racist, but just very passive about the way they recruited. There was this assumption, okay, we recruit from these 3 schools because we just know it's gonna be great, and that's it. And it wasn't like, oh, we hate Negroes and we're never gonna do anything better. Like, they're good people, some of them are friends, but the comfort, the ease of working so naturally within networks and communities that are already around you, the same ones you emerged from, leads to the same levels of self-selection and by extension, exclusion from other folks. So there might be schools, there might be other programs, there might be internships or apprenticeships or partnerships you can build to try to reach out, because those ideas from people not in your network are probably going to be more interesting, and certainly more so to you because you're used to a certain way of thinking. I would add, and I think I'm going a bit long on this one, but it is an important one. I don't think of it as a charity thing. I think it's important for folks to be cognizant that, we should be diverse because we just want to be good people. It really doesn't have to do with being good or doing the right thing. It has to do with being smart and doing the effective thing. This world doesn't look like this room. The future producers and consumers of content and stories and value is changing rapidly. And to not have a wide range of background, experience, and perspective just makes you less relevant. So it's just good business and creative sense to try to do it. And so, again, that intention is important. Like, I want to go help out these poor kids over here. No, they're going to help you out because they're going to bring something funky that you didn't think about. And that's going to connect with a whole new demographic, a whole new audience, or a different way with your existing one that could prove quite valuable. I have to wrap now. I'm going to be signing books at the table out in the hall. If there are any other rednecks here, you can find me at the table. And I need security. I assume we'll have some of that as well. Thank you so much, WebVisions. Thank you, Portland. See y'all at the party.